Hi, I'm Karen Greenberg, and you're watching a podcast where nostalgia comes alive. It's Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Roll it.
Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, where nostalgia comes alive. Join Jake and his friends on a journey through pop culture of the past, where they interview professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and so much more. Who will they be chatting with today? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Happy you're with us. Thank you for joining. As always, I'm host Jake Duffenbaugh. With me today, as always, our co-host Chris Bixby. How's it going, my friend?
Doing great. Hello, everybody. How are you, Jake?
Doing great as always. Thank you for asking, Chris.
Yes, we had a wonderful, wonderful interview for you folks. Was a lot of fun talking to
Yes.
this guest. Has done a lot of work, has done a lot of work in children's television. That's kind of what most of his career consists of. But I'll let Jake introduce the rest of the guest and tell everyone who we spoke to.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much, Chris. Today's guest we have in this episode is writer, creator, and author, the wonderful Fracaswell Hyman. We'll touch base his career, including his involvement in children's television, for being involved in shows in that field, such as Gullah Gullah Island, developed Little Bill, and recently Lyla in the Loop, as well as creating the famous Jett Jackson, the books that he got to wrote, and so much more. So let's not waste any more time. Enjoy our wonderful chat with Kaz. See you then. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Today we have with us is the amazing Fracaswell Hyman. Welcome, Kaz. Happy to have you here.
Hi, Happy New Year.
Yes, happy to have you here.
Yes, pleasure indeed. Yes, delighted to have you here. So, to kick things off, we know who you are, but for those who don't, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I'm retired now, but I was a writer. I wrote a lot of children's television, worked on Ghostwriter, the first Ghostwriter for PBS, and lots of shows for Nickelodeon. I created some shows for Nickelodeon and for Disney Channel, and just did a show recently called Lyla in the Loop on PBS Kids. My final show.
Nice, nice. Nice. So
Nice.
before, writing for, children's television, what was your childhood like?
My childhood. Well, I grew up with two sisters, one older, one younger. We lived in Brooklyn, New York. I had asthma. My older sister, and I both had asthma. So we were not allowed to go running outside and playing a lot and doing stuff that kids do, especially since we were in a very concentrated urban environment in Brooklyn, New York. So we spent a lot of time in the house in front of the television or watching movies and stuff like that, which I think probably helped me become a writer.
Nice. So now, was working in television always something you wanted to do as a career? Like, is it something you'd ever imagine yourself doing?
Yes, I always imagined myself doing something in television because, as I said, when we had asthma, we were pretty much stuck in the house most of the time when our parents were working or when
Right.
kids were running around outside. And so television was my, window to the world, to everything else that was outside of my apartment. And watching television, I always thought, from being a young kid, I thought I would want to be on television, be an actor. So that was where my first ambition is to be on television somewhere or movies somewhere.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Awesome. Wonderful. So, and now, of course, you're starting off with your career, you're kind of already touched base on a little bit earlier. Now, of course, you got to, be involved in the series like Ghostwriter. What was that, series like? You kind of started your career for that series, if that makes any sense.
That was very it was exciting, but it was also very strange because I had never had a writing job before. And I had an agent or a manager, Dale Davis, I think was her name. And some reason somebody saw something that I did. I was volunteering with a group called the 52nd Street Project in New York City, and we would take kids away to Block Island and write a play for them and come back and perform the play, the one act play with the kids in Manhattan. And somebody saw a play that I wrote and performed with this kid named Jose. And I my manager got a call asking me to come in for an interview. I had no desire or thoughts for writing for television or writing for anybody at that point. But I went in for the interview and I liked the people, Miranda Barry and Liz Nealon. And it just started a whole new direction for my life.
Absolutely. And so what
That's
was it?
wonderful.
The other question I wanted to ask about Ghostwriter, was it like kind of writing for a mystery series? Because I know a lot of the other children's series you've written for, like with Nick Jr. and Disney and things like that, kind of have different kind of plots and formats. So was it like kind of writing for a mystery kind of show, like
Um,
Ghostwriter?
Well, I mean, it was my very first show, and so I had to learn how to write a mystery. What are the elements that come with writing a mystery, and at the same time, learn what are the skills children need to become better readers. So when you're doing television for kids, especially if it's, I mean, I don't think any of it is totally not educational, but especially when it is educational, you have to learn the things that go along with teaching and be able to incorporate that into the mystery or the sitcom or whatever it is you're writing for children. So it was a whole new world for me, absolutely brand new. I used to ride on the train from Brooklyn into Manhattan every morning, reading a book called How to Write for Television, which I think I still have over there. And I would hide it once the train got into Manhattan because I didn't want everybody to know that I didn't know what I was doing. But it was a total learning experience. I had no idea what I was supposed to do, so I just followed instructions very carefully every day.
Absolutely. So now you also wrote for the Nick Jr. series Gullah Gullah Island, which was a fantastic show. Gullah Gullah Island was a wonderful show.
Yeah.
What was working on that show like as well as working with Ron and Natalie?
Gullah Gullah Island was a great experience because I got to meet one of my best friends in life, Maria Perez Brown, who
Oh yeah.
was one of the creators and executive producers of Gullah Gullah Island. And I got to
Yep.
work with her and Kathy Minton and Kit Laybourne and Chuck Vinson. These are people
Oh
that
yeah. A lot
just
of
became
legends.
really important, yeah, in my journey through this career. And it's important that they became friends, and we really enjoyed working together. Of course, there was a lot of challenges along the way, and the things that we were doing, a lot of them hadn't been done before, and so that was always exciting. But working on Gullah was great. I love the kids. I love. We would producing the first shows down in Florida, in Orlando, and I love being there. I love being at the Nickelodeon studios because
Oh
that was
Yeah.
yes.
right
Hmm.
behind the theme park, and we could go out through the gate and get on a couple of roller coasters and go back and finish the meetings we were having. It was a fun time in
Oh, that's great.
retrospect.
It's great. And on that show,
Yeah.
you also got to work with Janice Burgess, who we just very recently lost, who is of course, for those who don't know, later went on to create the Backyardigans and worked on a bunch of other Nick Jr. shows too. She was definitely a key part of Nick Jr. for many years. So what was it like
Absolutely.
getting to know her and work with her?
Janice came. I met Janice on Ghostwriter. Yeah, because
Oh wow.
I think she was working on Ghostwriter in some capacity. And so we have been connected throughout my entire career. She was always very nice to me. She was always very kind. And she could be extremely intimidating because Janice was brilliant. She had a brilliant steel trap mind, and she could like zero in on what was the problem with the story or an episode or some way were going to do the teachable moments in the shows. She was very smart, and she also had an acid sense of humor. She could take
Mm.
down pretty much anyone with just one of her really dry remarks. She loved to go out and have nice dinners and drink, and she's very much a snob, and I can say that because we're very
Hmm.
good friends. She was a snob. She just, she had to have very fancy scarves and buy things from only the best stores. She said she never ate at restaurants that advertised on television.
My gosh.
That's
Oh
hysterical.
man, she was a bougie
Oh.
as they come, but I loved her, and Janice, Maria Perez, and I were a triumvirate, and we worked together for many years. There are lots of shows that we created together that never saw the light of day, but we had fun putting them together. And yeah, she is a big, important part of my life, and I will miss her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Us as well, yeah.
absolutely.
Definitely will keep it part, her legacy will still, lives on for what she's done,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So now since we're of course, we already talked about, with aspect with Gola. Now, are there like any like, episodes of that series that can't stick out to you as some of your favorites that you got to well, especially that show, kind of talks about, with the topics that, that like we already said already that never they, never have done is want to give it a try, and actually there are times that actually did work out, So, is there any episodes that stick out to you in Gola?
From Gullah, the one that sticks out to me is one I think it's called the Binya Binya Pollywog Show.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And
Uh-huh.
and Binya and James have an argument. Well, James gets mad at Binya,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
and Binya
Right.
runs
Exactly.
away. And I wanted him to
Yeah.
cry. And we just would. I remember spending a lot of time with the prop people trying to figure out a way to make Binya cry. And so with the prop people, and I think Chuck Vincent directed it, or maybe it wasn't Chuck, but we finally figured out a way to take this jewel. It was like a pearl, a tear-shaped pearl, and attach an invisible wire to it. And then we put it on his eye, like on his face, and had the wire pull it up to his eye like a tear falling, and then ran it backwards. So it looked like he cried a tear. And
Wow.
so I don't know. I don't know if it's that whole trying to figure that out that was interesting, but I think it was one of my favorite episodes because it showed a range in James's acting, and I really like stories that have an emotional beat, because I think no
Yeah.
matter what it is, whether you're learning something in the moment or something about school stuff, scholastic stuff, or social emotional stuff, if it has an emotional component to it that makes you think and makes you feel something, whether it's sadness or anger or laughter or hope or whatever, the lessons are welded to who you are because the
Exactly.
story has touched you on some level that has something to do with what's going on in your heart and your soul. So yeah, that's why I'm attracted to the ones that have something highly dramatic. I like to write those, and I like to watch them.
Right. And
Absolutely.
for yeah, and for as well, for for kind of to have that show like to have the opportunity to do something like that. People, kids who watch it will like, will learn like hey, it's okay to have yeah, but you can get back up and at least try again to do something, or
You can
and
lose
or
your
do something
temper
other.
and you can
Yeah,
apologize. You can come to you can figure things out and you can
exactly.
make things right. Yeah. And we're not always nice and perfect. I mean, we all have teeth.
Right. Yeah.
That means we bite.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some of the episodes that kind of like comes to mind is because I know you were like involved in that episode particularly because I think you did like story like of that part, which is the episode called just simply Oops.
Was that Gullah?
Yeah, uh-huh.
It sounds like
Yeah.
something I would do. Oops. um, there's so many of them. It's hard for me to remember each of them, but I do remember that title.
Yeah, it's basically where like kind of ironically like you said, it's about where it talks about like mistake topic and then
Hmm.
like and then Vanessa and James like learn their mistakes or then that type of
Yeah,
storyline.
yeah. I mean, goodness, you say Vanessa. I adored her, Vanessa Baden, and James. Of course, he's passed away,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But Vanessa is out there. She's working on a show. She's writing. She's doing a show
Yeah,
called
she's doing great
Secret
things.
Secret
Oh
Life of
yeah.
Schoolgirls or something like that. And she's won an Emmy
Yeah.
That's
for
yeah, that's great.
performing.
So
And
For
worth.
Vanessa, yeah.
I'm just so proud of
Yeah.
her. She has a beautiful young boy. He's gorgeous. Looks like
So
her.
happy for her.
Yeah, yeah. She's a real great success story. Her and Shayna and all
Yeah, Shannon's
our
great too.
kids have mostly, done well. We've only lost a couple, and both of them are young men, which is unfortunate. You know, um, we
Yeah.
lost James, and
Yeah.
um, of course, yeah, we lost Jett Jackson. So
Right, yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Right.
Um,
And Gullah Gullah Island Day and the one that did like a talent show and of course, the Christmas special.
I did that Christmas special. I had left the show usually after two seasons, I'm like ready to go. So after the second season, I left the show. But and then Kermit Frazier or Karen Greenberg from Ghostwriter.
Karen,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's
well,
wonderful.
one of them took my job after I left. And then Maria
Right.
called me and said, "Would you please write a Christmas episode?" And so I was like, "Yeah, okay." And I think it turned out pretty sweet. It was pretty like a family
Yeah,
type
yeah. I
thing.
remember the
Yeah,
last time I watched that, it was a really sweet special. I mean the show overall, it's so wonderful. And to have that kind of have it diverse, where back then it wasn't there wasn't really not a lot of shows to talk about that part. So for Goa to have that whole opportunity to have that type of that part for the show, I just love that, you
yeah,
know?
it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot of hard work. Those kids, I'm gonna tell you something about kids in show business and kids that are on, television shows. They're normally, I mean, 99% of the time, they are smart. They're
Oh
smart
yeah, for sure.
and hardworking.
Absolutely.
You can't, to do that. Not only do these kids have to come and perform and learn their lines and choreography and songs, but they have to go to school every day too. They have
Yeah.
a couple of hours of school every day, and so I cannot give them enough applause from all the children that I have worked with all these years. There have been very, very, very few, I would say, problematic children that I've worked with. I have just been so impressed. They were so smart and fun and funny, and I just have been just so blessed to have been lucky enough to be on shows where these kind of kids were cast. I owe so
And,
much.
and, and, and kids being kids.
Yeah, but you owe to them because once you start working with them and you get to know them and you get to know this guy's really good at doing the punchline. This guy's really good at doing the setup. And she's
Yeah.
really funny. She
Yeah.
always makes my stuff funnier than I was when I wrote it. So you start to write for them. And, I mean, they were wonderful, just wonderful. I can't say enough for the showbiz kids out there, the ones that get proper guidance and are taught to be decent people, but and most of them are.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, wonderful show.
So another show you wrote a little bit for was 101 Dalmatians, the series, which was created by another good friend, Jim Jenkins. What was
Yeah.
that show like?
Oh, it was a horrible experience. See, I can tell the truth because I'm retired. Oh, that was a horrible experience.
Oh, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to, but
No, Jim Jenkins was the nicest man ever. He was
Absolutely, he is.
They
Such a
pulled me
great
in
guy.
because Karen Greenberg was working over there as their head writer. So she said, offered me,
Ah.
to come aboard. And I was like, sure, fine. I was living in California at the time. I was in Los Angeles, and everything with that show was happening back here in New York. So I wasn't really involved in the day-to-day part of it. And I remember coming into New York, and there was a misunderstanding with one of the producers. I think I blocked her name out of my head, but she had very red hair and a very mean face. And she was one of the producers. And I'm being perfectly honest. I was in New York. I did some of the writing that I had to do for that episode. And I was at my friend Liz Nealon's office when I sent it to the people involved in that show. I turned in my work. And this producer saw the label from Liz's company on the fax, because back then they had different kind of fax, and she went to her bosses and accused me of being in New York working for somebody else when they had paid me to come there to do that script. And it caused a whole big thing, and I quit.
wow.
And then, funniest thing ever is last year, there was a guy who worked on that show who was a genius, a brilliant man named Bob's Ganaway. He's a legend, and he was so nice to me. He was one of the ones that I would deal with when I was in Los Angeles because he worked out there. And he was so nice to me, and he was really great. But last year, I found out that I'm credited for 2 scripts on that show written with Bob's Ganaway. And I guess after I quit, the 2 stories that I had been working on, I just walked away. I just left. When I'm done, I'm done. And I guess Bob's finished those scripts, and they gave me credit. They gave me credit, which was
well, good for them. Good for them to do it. And anyway,
I think it's good for me because I got a credit with a guy that I think of as legendary. And I had never seen the show. I actually watched the episode last year, and I think there was one line that I had written that was still in that episode.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy.
There's a big ups on Bob Ganaway and whoever was there who said, well, listen, this guy was working on it, so let's give him the credit too. But I had never seen it until last year.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
That's
wow.
funny.
Yeah, I mean, for what he's done over the years, it's
I know
so
House of Mouse,
amazing.
Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. He's created a lot for Disney.
He was brilliant for Disney. I don't even know if he remembers me, but I do remember him being very kind, as opposed to that producer from New York. She was a witch. And if I could remember her name, I would say it because I really, really, really despise that woman. Now, moving on.
Yeah. So now, as already mentioned in the earlier, so of course you got to create a series for Disney Channel, The Famous Jett Jackson.
Yeah.
Which they already mentioned about Jet. So now, what was that series kind of like? Came about. What was your idea and the whole creative process, to do that?
I was working on Gullah Gullah Island. No, I was working on Ghostwriter. And I went to visit my mother. My mother had left New York and moved to North Carolina, in a town called Willard. And I had gone to visit her, and I, flew down. I got a rental car. I was driving down the road, finding my way to her house, and people were on porches, and they were waving, and I was waving back to them because coming from Brooklyn, that was like not the norm. They didn't even know me, and I just started thinking, what if Sheldon, who played Jamal on Ghostwriter, what if he came down to that town? He was from there and he was famous. And what if he decided to come and do the show there? And they had to do it there because he was the star. And that's where Jett was born, in Willard, North Carolina, visiting my mom. The whole idea came to me, and slowly but surely put it together. You know?
That's great.
But it was torture.
Yeah.
Getting a show greenlit is one of the most difficult, trying things that can happen to any writer producer. It's a lot of work. You have to convince a lot of people that this is going to be something that will be successful. And so you jump through unimaginable hoops. But if you keep your focus, and like I said, some of them see the light of day and some of them never do.
If you look at the poster in the back, the famous Jett Jackson definitely did, you know, see the light of day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful show.
Yeah.
So on the topic of people that we lost, of course, many years ago now, we lost Lee Thompson Young, who of course played the star of that show, Jett Jackson. Can you share any stories from, working with him?
I love Lee Thompson Young. He was a miracle to me. We had such a long search of, first of all, just to get them to pick up the idea of Jett Jackson was a long, horrible time. But once they said, yes, we'll do it, then finding that actor, oh man, we went through so many actors, auditions and watching tapes and seeing them in person. But then one night I saw a Robitussin commercial, and I was like, that kid is Jett. I mean, he was just so perfect, and he was clean cut and handsome and articulate, and he just had a spark in his eye. And I was like, that kid is perfect. And the next morning, I called our casting agent in New York, Pat McCorkle. And I said, Pat, I saw this kid on a Robitussin commercial last night on TV, and he's perfect. And she's like, oh my God, I had him in here yesterday. So it worked. It worked out. She had taped him the day before. I had seen him on the commercial, and we took him out to LA. Disney loved him, and he was such a professional.
Oh yeah.
He was everything you could want in a leading man that was a young man. But Lee had other issues. He was bipolar, and there was stuff that we didn't know about, and he was on medication. And you know how in these commercials, these medications for depression can sometimes give you thoughts of suicide, and they list all of the
Yeah.
side
Right.
effects of them. And I think that's what happened to Lee, because he was just a good man, and there were
Oh yeah.
demons, I guess, that I didn't know where they came from, but they never affected his work and or his relationships. And that was so shocking to me and many others when we learned that he had the bipolar issues, and had to take medication for him.
Yeah, it's a really unfortunate loss. But yeah, Famous Jett Jackson was a wonderful show. It was a little bit before my time, but I definitely watched reruns of it on like Disney Channel and Disney XD and things like that. So it was a fun show.
Yeah.
Do they still show it?
I don't think so, not
No, I don't
anymore.
think
I don't know. I don't think
Yeah, I
so.
haven't showed it in a while.
so.
Yeah. So of course, the show being a huge success, now of course it got to turn into a movie, Jett Jackson, the movie. So, what was that, like from the aspect from, most of the time throughout your career at that point, you've been doing, like, a series and all that, but now you're involved in, a movie for, which was for a show, so like Famous Jett Jackson to that. So, so what was the comparison aspect you getting to be a part of that and,
I had
like what
nothing
was
to
that
do with
like?
that. I had nothing to do with that.
Ah,
This is going back to some of the not so pretty side of children's television. When we were coming back for our second season, um, after putting the first season together and coming in on time, on budget, Disney decided to let's tinker with it. Let's cut some of the budget. Let's cut some of the money. The first thing they decided to cut was my partner, my executive producer partner, Liz Nealon, who I wouldn't have been there without her. So they first were firing Liz, and then they were trying to give me all kinds of reasons why, if I came back to the show when I go to Canada to work on the show, the rental car that I would use would have to come out of my own pocket. I mean, just stupid little stuff like that. They started doing little stupid negotiations like that.
yeah.
But they didn't know at the same time, Nickelodeon was trying to talk me into working on Little Bill.
Right.
So, I mean, I was so
Gotcha.
disappointed with how Disney, once you work so hard to not, go over budget, and then you stay within budget and you do what you're supposed to do, and they come back and say, well, since you could do that, we'll give you less. I just think that there's some parts of the business that are really stinky, and
Right. Yeah.
that was the main reason that I left after the first season of Jet, which I loved and the show I created. But I wanted to go to a place where I felt at home, and that I liked the people there and I liked the atmosphere. There are very different cultures between Disney and Nickelodeon. At least there were back in the day. And the culture
Right.
of Nickelodeon suited me much better. It was much more relaxed. Working at Disney was like, working for a corporate bank. I mean, even if you go to the studio where they have the seven dwarf statues holding up the roof. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how you
Yeah.
felt when you worked at Disney.
Yeah.
So there you have it.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Unfortunately, that's how sometimes showbiz does. But I'm glad that I for times with Nickelodeon that like they it's like where there are times where people just want like there are times that the person just wants to like you for example that you want to work with people that you actually like working with instead of like do I have to work with these people every single it's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, you can work in an environment that's high pressure and still respect each other and have fun and
Yeah,
get the
of
job
course.
done without it becoming, cutthroat. And I think that, at least from my experience back at that time, because like I said, I haven't been there forever and I'm, retired,
Right.
but there were very different companies. And I think the work that they put out also shows the difference in terms of the cultures of both of those companies.
Right. Yeah.
But the good thing is now that they're not the only games in town anymore. There's lots of other, companies and people out there putting out product. And I think
And
that's
streaming services. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was only
Exactly.
two, there were only three. There was Nickelodeon, Disney, and PBS that
Right.
were
Right.
there,
Hmm.
when I was out there. So, but now there are way more places to get things done and more opportunities for people to tell their individual unique stories, stories from
Exactly.
many
Of
different cultures. And I think that's a wonderful thing now.
Absolutely.
course.
So, as you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you developed Little Bill for Nick Jr. What was working on that show like? Because it was, another very, very successful show for its time.
Yeah, when they first were talking to me about that, I was uh, kind of starstruck because Bill Cosby was a huge star. I
Oh
mean, he
yeah.
was one of the biggest stars of African American stars ever. And he not only the success of the Cosby Show and all that. So I was very nervous. I was very intimidated. The first time I met Mr. Cosby, we were in a conference room and he was going to talk to us about the show. And I put my laptop in front of me and I sat there moving my fingers like I was taking notes. But I barely looked up because I was just so nervous. But Mr. Cosby doesn't give you much room to do anything but listen when he's in the room. So having meetings with Bill Cosby was like going to a Bill Cosby concert because you just sit and listen and laugh and don't interrupt because he's just stream of conscious. But I
Yeah.
loved the characters. I loved Little Bill. I loved writing for Little Bill. Writing Little Bill made me want to be a dad. So I think that's the most important thing that came out of that experience for me is that I knew that I wanted to be a dad because I loved I loved that character so much. So it would started
Yeah.
me on that journey to become a father.
Oh,
Oh
that's
wow.
wonderful.
That's
That's
lovely.
delightful. Yeah, Little Bill was a wonderful show. Grew up watching that a lot. So I think,
Yeah.
you and everyone's work on that show is, wonderful. It was such a beautifully done show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, with me kind of got to expose watching that. I mean, of course, and whenever I was like born, it was when like Little Bill was like I was barely like when Little Bill like when that show like kind of like stopped like done with new episodes. But of course, I got to I remember vaguely watching it through like reruns and sometimes watching it through DVDs where the show features some of the episodes through that, so I did grow up watching it. For what I do remember. I mean, of course, I actually not too long ago, actually just earlier today was rewatching an episode that I remember watching, but we can go to that whenever. But yeah, overall, it's such a great show.
And
Yeah, and I,
there's a reason
And
that they
Xavier,
do.
Bridget,
yeah.
Little Bill.
Xavier was terrific. They only do a certain number of shows, like maybe about 40, usually is the most in terms of shows for preschoolers, especially because every 4 years there's a brand new audience and it's all new for them. So you only have to do
Yeah,
a certain amount and the show can be, run forever, you know. There's
Right.
always a new breed of kids to watch.
Yeah.
yes, of course, absolutely. Yeah, that's very very true indeed as always. So to have that more to have that more room for more shows. So other just always great. So
Mm-hmm.
since we already now we were talking about with episodes with Gola. Now, are there any episodes of Little Bill that sticks out to you? If you remember, of course.
Oh, little bit, little bit, little bit. There was one I really liked called the No Talking Contest, where it was Little Bill and his brother and sister, and they had a contest where they wouldn't talk, and to see who could go the longest without saying a word. And
Ah, okay.
Little Bill noticed something in the trash, and he wanted to tell them. I can't remember the details, but it was just fun. It was the kind of thing that my sisters and I would do, when we were at home and we had, to stay in the house. We couldn't go out. And so we would always come up with these silly challenges, who could stare at each other the longest, or who could not talk for the longest, or who could sing everything that they said for the whole day.
Oh my
We
gosh,
would always have these kind of contests. And that's why
that's
I really
great.
think I liked that episode because it was just so silly.
That's great.
Absolutely. One episode that comes to mind, because actually one that we rewatched recently was the episode The Early Bill, where little Bill wakes up super early and his grandma like takes him on a walk.
Oh,
Right.
I don't. Who wrote that one?
Let me see if I can check quickly. That would be actually a previous guest who, of course, is another legend in the industry, Sonia
Yeah.
Manzano.
So yeah, Sonia, yeah, of course.
Ah,
Right.
I don't know her.
Yeah, she played Maria on Sesame Street. Yeah.
Didn't she create that show that's on now?
On my way.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, that's a great show. Sonia's great.
Oh, cool,
I
cool.
sometimes forget that she got to row for that show because I know she only did that for like only a couple of them where I remembered,
Well,
but
you know
that's
me,
pretty cool.
I leave after season two, so
Right.
it must have been
Right.
season
Right.
three because
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
the
Yeah.
wind changes. I got to go.
Yeah.
Right. There are a lot
Yeah.
of fun episodes. There was like a talent show episode and one where I think where they go to the zoo or something like that. There
Yeah,
are
I
a lot
went
of
to
fun
like
episodes.
yeah, I went to like the store or something.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then like now that episode what I meant or just a moment ago where I got to actually rewatch for the first time in like years, I still remember so fondly, which you actually got to row for both of them. So that's definitely that's your time where you're still doing that show. But it's so it's called Wasting Time, where it's basically it's a storyline where like where little Bill was like going to school to see like to see a show and tell, but he was messing around and didn't get in school on time, so he was late. And then
Oh,
like and then later on that story is where the grandma was like helping little Bill to like have the time so he can see if he can brush his teeth and get his clothes on before the time runs out. So now way he gets up and actually go to school. And he was actually at school. He was the first student
my
back to
God.
school because he was so early.
Yeah, it sounds, you know, it seems like every show there's a time management episode. Because
Right.
so many parents have trouble getting their kids ready.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a real life issue, so I'm glad that, some of these kids shows have kind of tackled things like that
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
recently.
Yeah. Now with those type of things, now another one that has with that, right after it was all tied up, where he was like trying to um uh trying uh trying to
tie a
it's
shoe.
about he tied his shoe, yeah. Uh-huh. Where he just can't do it, but then like later on at the very last minute of it, like he finally got to tie his shoe
Yeah,
because his dad was
those are those.
helping the routines,
Yeah,
that.
those
Yeah.
episodes of they're learning how to do the basic things that all kids have to learn how to do at a certain point. So
Yeah, and then there was an
Yeah.
episode I think where they're playing baseball. There's like a family reunion and they're like playing baseball.
yeah,
I might have remembered watching that.
Yeah.
uh, I think I wrote that one where they go out and play baseball with Alice the Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might have been that.
definitely. So now continuing your work with Nickelodeon, you also wrote and produced for Taina, which, again talk about Maria Perez Brown, who created that show as well. What was that show like?
Best time ever. Best time. It was great. It was so much fun working with Maria again. I had gone off to do other shows, and then she had gotten a green light for her idea for Taina, but she needed a rewrite for a pilot episode. So I went in and wrote the pilot episode, and then it got picked up, and so I stayed on with the show. The first season we did it in Orlando, which was fun. And then the second season we moved to Los Angeles, which I was loved because I could get to work in 5 minutes down Sunset Boulevard. um, so yeah, it was a really good experience. There was a lot of drama because the cast was teenagers. So
Ah, gotcha.
there's that kind of
Okay.
they're all going through their growth spurts and maturation, but wonderful, wonderful people. Nothing but fond memories for all of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's
Behind the scenes
great.
and in front of the camera, just good people.
Yeah, and of course
That's
one of the
wonderful.
stars on that show, of course, Chris Knowings. Of course, now he's become big on like, Sesame Street and things like that. So
Yeah.
he's
Uh-huh.
Is Chris still doing Sesame Street?
Yep,
Yeah, I think
yep,
so.
still
Yeah.
there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, he's been there for a while now, for like
Yeah.
18 years or something like that. Yeah, he's been there a while.
He's a wonderful, wonderful young man.
Yeah.
Sometimes I had to get stern with him, but that's because he was a young man. But I adore him. He's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's great.
yeah, his he has also character on Sesame. It's just there are times where he's like,
Where he gets
he's so
like so
great.
like worried and stuff. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Very smartful. So now what was creating process to being in the process to creating a Romeo? What was that like?
Oh, that was weird. Uh, hey, Romeo. I'm trying to remember how I got pulled into that. I guess that um, probably they were looking for a black writer, and at the time I
Mm.
was the game in town, and I got pulled in to work with Tommy on the pilot, Tommy Lynch, who I met. And, Tommy Lynch is crazy. He is quite a character. He is bombastic and loud, but he's a good guy, and we got along pretty well. And the adventurous part, I guess, working on that show is working with rappers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. Little Romeo
Yeah.
and his dad.
Yeah.
Oh, especially the dad. Romeo was still a kid, so he was, he was manageable. His father was a different story altogether, but everything tend to work out. We had lots of um, nail biting moments, but things came together, and we learned a lot during that whole process.
That's great.
Very much.
So now, as you mentioned, your last show was writing for Lyla in the Loop on PBS. What was that show like?
Um, Lyla came to me out of the blue. I was really already retired. And I'd written a few books and stuff like that. And then I got a call from this guy named Dave, and he was looking for someone to work with him. He created Lyla in the Loop,
Mm.
but Dave was mostly a games creator. He had mostly been a digital supervisor and stuff like that. So once they picked up his show, they wanted him to be paired with someone who had more experience in terms of writing and getting the show up. And so I liked him. I wasn't looking for anything. I really wasn't, but I really liked him. And we had several conversations before I was like, said I would work with them for one season, because I also figured out, well, I could just save all the money and pay for my daughter's college. So I took the job to pay for her college, and did it for one season. And because I really like working with Dave, and Dave is a terrific guy. He's, hopefully the show gets picked up and it keeps going.
Yeah.
Because I think it's turned out really nice, really nice. And so I wish the
Absolutely.
best for them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. I think it's one of those series that's aired on PBS that I actually really enjoy. To have that kind of another diverse type of way, and and for that for kind of just get that kind of another for having another show that kind of like involves with problem solving where like what's that character's name? Who's the character that goes super fast?
Stu,
Stu,
So
yeah,
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 yeah.
Stu,
Mm.
yeah.
something
I was
totally
gonna say
unique.
that, but it didn't come out of my mind. But like where times where he's like just mess up, like in the where like an ice cream where everything's all messed up, and then where Lala just say stop to stew and
Yeah.
all that. But it's cool to have that
No,
kind of a, for new generation of fans who watching it can have their way to problem solving through that, kind of how
yeah,
it is with
and
us with Little
learning
Bill and Gola and other.
now that we have, computers and phones and iPads and stuff like that, Stu is kind of like a computer, and like whatever instruction you give him, he will do verbatim. And so you have to be
Hmm.
specific, and hopefully that's a good way of teaching children that are watching, that you have to be clear and specific and know what it is you want in order to get, the result that you want. So I think Stu's a fun way to help get that lesson across to kids.
Definitely.
Yeah, of course. And I hope a lot of those kids will enjoy that too. So, so now, of course, you also, got to be an author for some of the books that you've got to, wrote for yourself, which is pretty awesome. So, starting out with Mango Delight. Now, what was the process of doing that? Your involvement for, to have, your first book. How that whole
Well,
writing.
I had like retired, moved to North Carolina to help out with my mom, who was she was diagnosed with dementia, and so we moved across country. And my daughter went to a very nice school here, and I was volunteering, working in the library once a week, shelving books, and checking kids out. And I noticed that the only books that had a character like my daughter, who was just like a regular kid, there were no books with black girls on the cover that were like her. The ones that were on the cover were, you know, Little Mary escapes from slavery, and those kind of books that had some kind of historical bent, but nothing that just seemed like a regular girl, like my daughter and her friends. And so that's when I started writing Mango, just to try to see if I could get a book in the library with a girl on the cover that looked like my daughter, that wasn't going through a stressful situation from history. And luckily, the librarian, she read my first draft and she's like, "This is pretty good." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so we sold the book and got a contract for three novels, which was unexpected, but it was great. Came right at a good time.
Absolutely. So another one you wrote was Summer in the City. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, that was the second Mango book. And now they changed the title. Actually, they should have done it from the beginning. From the beginning, it was called Summer in the City, but they changed the title to Mango in the City, which is good. But that was after the book already had come out. So, and the tragic thing about Summer in the City is that it came out in March of 2020, when all the schools closed, all the
Oh,
libraries
yes.
closed, everything shut down. And so I had a brand new book out there ready to go into book fairs and schools and stuff like that, and everything was shut down. It was something beyond my control. At first I felt really horrible about it, but it's beyond my control. I couldn't do anything about that. So
Right. There you go.
yeah, what can you do?
Exactly.
So of course, since we're about getting to wrap things up, our last question that Chris is about to ask, we usually ask this question to every single guest. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you, Jake. So this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. When you think of nostalgia, what do you think of? Or what does nostalgia mean to you? How would you define nostalgia?
I think nostalgia is like a comfort food for the soul. It is the kind of stuff that makes you smile and think back to when, at least for you, times were comfortable and warm, and you felt safe. I think that's what nostalgia does for us, is that it lets us reconnect with things that made us feel safe, that may have been a part of our formative years, and have a lot to do with who we became as people. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, and I think that's why it's always attractive, because it always makes us smile to go back and look at the things that we were familiar with and that bring back good memories.
Absolutely. Great words to end off.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, thanks, you guys. I really appreciate you doing this, and continued success.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Kaz. It means a lot.
Yeah, so well, Kaz, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Glad we were able to make it happen. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, and best of luck to you guys.
You as well, Kaz.
I'm glad to make this happen.
All right.
Thanks again.
Yes, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Of course.
Bye.
Take care, Kaz. Bye.
Bye.
It's goodbye from us as well, ladies and gentlemen. We absolutely enjoyed time speaking with the wonderful Kaz Hyman. Links to his website will be in the description down below for anyone who wants to connect with him or check out his work or learn about the many wonderful projects that he's worked on, whether it be TV and books. Keep on the lookout for more wonderful interviews coming your way. And as always, what do we say, Jake?
Keep nostalgia alive. Take care, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Be sure to follow Jake and the Happy Nostalgia team on social media, check out our website, and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.